Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing Unboxed Pod. This is episode 45, I believe. I'm
Yep.
your host today. Yeah, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by.
David Allen, this is episode 45. Hope everybody out there is doing well.
Yeah, I think the weather subsided for the most part. At least right now, it's taking a break. It's not setting things on fire in California. It's not freezing us in the Southeast. So I don't know what you folks in the Midwest are doing, but hopefully you're enjoying whatever kind of weather you're getting. Uh, we want to thank you guys for joining us for another pod. We got a ton of news. It's been a busy week for Microsoft. They are announcing earnings. They are announcing hardware. They are announcing that they are friends with the enemy. So we're going to cover all of that. Let me get you guys started with some of our headlines to kind of walk you through what we're going to be talking about today. We got Forza making its way to the PlayStation. We'll get into details on how that's going, when that's planning to happen, and what our thoughts are as far as Microsoft again moving away from hardware exclusives. We're going to be talking about Microsoft's Q2 fiscal year 25 earnings. The ups and downs started off really hot for them the day they announced it, and then investors kind of sat back and thought about some of the projections that Microsoft was saying about weak analysis and what's going forward and competition. And then all of a sudden, Microsoft stock kind of tanked, and we'll kind of walk through that. We're going to be talking about Windows, the Windows Phone Link, and a new operating system it's trying to support, and why that could help, shore up some of this Windows 11 market share bleed, I suppose. When we're talking about DeepSeek, that has been the phrase, term, business brand that is kind of taking the headlines this week. We are going to cover it just like everyone else is. We're going to try and go a deep dive into this and kind of at least educate you guys on what it is and why it's making waves. Then we'll be talking about some newly announced Surface devices. They're much like the old devices, but a little bit of a twist, and we'll explain, like, again, why that's why Microsoft's even bothering with those. Then we're going to kind of wrap up with what we're going to start adding to is our gaming section. We asked you guys last week what you guys are playing. None of you responded yet, but so we're going to tell you what we're playing, and maybe that'll spur more conversation. There's a lot to talk about there because I am playing quite a handful of games, not a bunch of intensive ones, but casual ones that I'm very excited about. I'm excited to hear what David's playing. And then if there's any other headlines that we might have missed, we'll kind of scour the internet real quick for those. But other than that, we should be able to get you guys in and out. With that being said, let me stop talking, handing it over to David to talk about our first topic.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Let's kind of jump in right here. Let's get on into. We have Forza Horizon 5 is headed to PlayStation. And I thought, this was kind of a surprising announcement for me. I didn't see this coming now, and I certainly didn't see it being that title first, because Forza Horizon 5 is a big name title. Anything in the Forza branding has been a big name for Microsoft, and it's somewhat of a first party title because Microsoft and Turn 10 kind of have a relationship. But what we have here coming this spring, Panic Button, which is a developer studio, is working alongside Turn 10 and Microsoft to bring Forza Horizon 5 to the PlayStation 5. No specific date yet, but we do know that everything is going to be the same pretty much from one platform to the other. So the PlayStation folks don't seem to be getting something that the PC folks or the Xbox folks don't have. You will be able to play online with your PlayStation friends using crossplay. And we know that there are two DLC packs being worked on. One is new cars, and the other is kind of a mismatch of the popular areas in Forza Horizon 5 and the popular cars that have kind of been put together and will be released when and around the release of Forza Horizon 5 for PlayStation. Now, to wrap this up, this kind of steps into what we've talked about for the last 6 weeks or so. Another move in Xbox software. Another move to enhance Phil Spencer's play anywhere, play on anything. Good to see this. I hope we get more titles this year. I hope this is just not a lame duck thing that the that the PlayStation gets, and I would like to have enough titles over there to convince me maybe by mid-year that, hey, go buy a PlayStation and enjoy exclusives on both sides.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to this. It's good to see that that game is going on there, especially since Gran Turismo seems to be kind of in a lurch right now. I don't know what they're doing with that title, but that used to be the seminal racing game over in PlayStation Land. So for those people who are waiting for, uh, uh, I guess the next version of Gran Turismo to come out, you can start playing this. Our next topic is going to be Microsoft's earnings. We had Satya Nadella and Amy Hood, I believe, on calls talking about how the company did with their Q2, which is usually, believe, the like third or fourth quarter for most other companies. It's just the way that Microsoft kind of runs theirs. But anyway, some of the top billing numbers are 69.6 billion in revenue, which is pretty good. It's a 12% increase from the same year prior. They had operating income that rose by 17% to about 31.7 billion. Their net income, which is the stuff they put in the bank, increased by about 10% from up to about 24.1 billion for the quarter. That's pretty good for Microsoft, especially I think when they were down with the Steve Ballmer era. They used to bring in somewhere around 10 to 12 billion, maybe 14 on a high quarter. So they're definitely punching above their previous weight. AI cloud growth in the AI business that rose about 175%. That's 13 billion in revenue run rate, which is that increase year over year. Now that sounds high, but I'm gonna shoot that down in a second with some reality and what those numbers actually mean. Because again, we're talking about revenue. Revenue is great, profits different thing. Microsoft Cloud revenue was about 40.9 billion. That's up 21% from last year, and that's where Microsoft kind of has been getting its high praise for the last 5, 6, 7 years worth of quarters with Satya Nadella at the helm. The cloud has been floating this company for a lot, and they've been doing great with it. They've definitely made some inroads against AWS and kind of positioned themselves solidly at number 2 with really no threat from Google Cloud as of yet. The business segment, which is their productivity and business processes, is up 14%, about 29.4 billion in revenue. The intelligent cloud, which is up about 19%, that incorporates Azure and some other stuff like that. And then you have the more personal computing, again, which is all the fun stuff we like to talk about, which is Xbox, Surface devices, I believe even Bing and some other things like that. Search, which was about 14.7 billion in revenue, which again is relatively flat compared to the previous year. So Surface devices aren't doing well for them. We know that they took a kind of a hit despite being declared the number one publisher in December. They took a hit when it comes to Xbox gaming. Specifically, gaming revenue was down 7% for the year. Xbox hardware revenue was also down by about 29%. They're just kind of falling off a cliff when it comes to selling these series devices, Xbox S and X. Maybe it's just because it's hard to write on marketing, the X/-S or whatever. People are just like, you know what? If I can't write it, I'm not selling it. Xbox content and services revenue grew, though, by 2%. So, again, I think that's on the back of the big Activision purchase. And if you count Call of Duty, I think that's making up for a lot of the hardware loss that they are experiencing. The device segment saw another 20% decline year over year, which, again, that's usually due to lower Surface and Windows OEM revenue, combination of the two. So part of it is the market is just stagnant when it comes to PC sales, and Microsoft's just not selling the number of Surface devices they were. And I don't know if it has to do with pricing or marketing, but I have some speculation on what they could do to kind of bring that back up. The market implications, despite strong earnings, Microsoft stock dipped in after-hours trading, and I think they lost about 6% to date, if I'm not mistaken. The report underscores Microsoft's competitive edge in AI, but some of its other segments are kind of falling to the wayside. What are your thoughts before we get into investors kind of being disappointed? Initially impressed, thought about it, now disappointed.
Well, I think we got a typical Microsoft earnings that kind of backs where everybody says or everybody thinks Microsoft is going to go and what Microsoft is going to do. Cloud was up, I think you said 29 or 30%. That's kind of to be expected. Now, what would be nice to know there is what were those cloud numbers? Are businesses using Azure? Are we buying more Microsoft 365 memberships? Are we getting the Teams add-on licenses? Are these companies buying the Copilot Pro licenses? That would be good information to know. Now, the Xbox numbers, Surface has kind of been falling off a cliff, as you mentioned, for the last several years. I think they're niche devices, personally, from a tech standpoint. I don't want to see Microsoft stop making them, because they are innovative. Nobody else has them. But I think eventually they're going to have to look at those numbers and go, do we really want to keep making Surface devices? Which kind of leads me to number 3. The Xbox. You said the hardware was off another 29-30%.
Mm-hmm.
But if you saw the Phil Spencer interview this week, which I think you reported on it, Phil Spencer says he doesn't want to stop making Xbox consoles. He thinks the Xbox can be innovative and step itself outside of PlayStation. So did that signal that they're not done making consoles? But yet the story that I just talked about with Forza Horizon coming to PlayStation kind of backs up the fact that, hey, we're going to be a software company. So I think Xbox is in limbo. I don't know, the brand I think is fine. I just think they've got to make a firm decision on what they're going to do. Are they going to make more consoles? Are they going to make a handheld? Or are they just going to do this licensing thing that they agreed to with Call of Duty and expand on that and be a software company?
Yeah.
And be a software distributor.
Yeah, before we get into that, because I feel like there's a lot to dig in there, I just wanted to kind of give some reference to the numbers you were asking about. Again, Microsoft doesn't give us exactly all of them, but we do see what Microsoft 365 Commercial is doing. That product, Cloud Services Group, grew about 15%. And I believe that the cloud revenue grew about 16%, with Microsoft 365 commercial growth at around 7%, which is driven by small and medium businesses. We also got Microsoft 365 Consumer, which grew about 8%, which is more than I thought it was going to. But I think now that they're just labeling everything that under Office and whatnot, that kind of helps kind of buffer those numbers a little bit. LinkedIn is still a pretty good business for them. It's grew about 9%. And then there's Microsoft Dynamics, which grew about 15%. I do know that there is, hold on, let me see if I can find that slide as far as Office and Intelligent Cloud. Let me share that one real quick. Sorry, ladies, working the old StreamYard as quickly as I can. Let me make sure I got the right one. I think I do. All right. Nope. But anyway, this is the other financial highlights, though. Microsoft returned $9.7 billion to shareholders with $66.2 billion in dividends. The operating expense was $16.2 billion, which is up 5% year over year, which I think is kind of what some of these investors are looking at as far as the input versus output. How much are you now asking us to spend on what you think will be long-term investments? And again, when you see a 5% increase year over year, and you start to see that number of cloud growth stagnate or shrink, then you become worried as an investor. It's like, I'm putting more in and I'm not seeing the growth be reciprocal. Anyway, back to your gaming though. Phil Spencer keeps saying that he wants to keep working in hardware, but again, we have no other indication of what to expect from hardware. He hasn't been talking about, perhaps what the next generation console will be, what they're expecting. None of the new technologies that they're looking to incorporate. No, even if you're out here just BSing, saying like, hey, I want to see new hardware, and I hope we utilize AI somehow in it. That's giving you something to look for. He just keeps saying, I want new hardware, and we're thinking about handhelds. He's been saying that for the last, 3 years. And we've got no indication. We know that they want to do a mobile store, but we have there's no leaks about what the mobile store is going to look like, what it's going to host, how it's going to operate differently, and how it operates outside of Apple's, Apple and Google's Play Store and how he's going to drive people to that. Like, we don't have any firm things about that. We just have a vague idea of what they want to do, but what they're currently doing, at least, and my dad always says, actions, not words. Like, you can, as a politician will tell you, I want to do these things, but you vote on what they've done, what their actions have proven. And so far, all we've seen is that they've been giving more and more games to other platforms. Again, I don't really have a stake in that. Like, I like the Xbox software and the ecosystem, but I'm not attached to it. If I need to go somewhere else to play those exact games, the games that I want to play, then I will. But as of right now, the actions over the last 2 years have just been more games and more accessibility, but nothing about hardware that's going to be like, this is why I want to stay with the platform, which is, again, why I think we're seeing the Xbox Series not do as well. They're not marketing it as, hey, have you seen any commercials about buy an Xbox?
I was going to bring that up there. Said no commercials.
Yeah. If there are commercials, they're about Game Pass.
And I think there needs to be across the board, maybe even PlayStation 2 for what limited cloud gaming they seem to have. I think there needs to be a different push or something that people can better understand about what cloud gaming is and how to access it. Because the reason I bring that up, I've got a Google Pixel tablet. And I had been using that tablet for basic everyday use, media use, like everybody else. YouTube videos, scroll social media, etc. And as things went on, and I have set Google off here. Give me just a second. I'm sorry.
Good. It's nice to have a guest on.
But I wanted to put my Game Pass and be able to stream on my Pixel tablet. So I go to the Play Store, and guess what? Inside there's an app called Xbox Cloud Gaming. You download it. It doesn't work. Let me tell you why. When you open it up, it basically looks like the Xbox app. So I'm looking for where's the cloud gaming like it is on the PC. On the Xbox app. On the Xbox app on the PC, you click cloud gaming on the left. It gives you a list of your cloud games. You pick what you want. You go off and you play. Makes perfect sense, right? Well, the cloud gaming app on the Google Store doesn't have that. No, you have to go back in your browser, go to xbox.com, make sure you're signed in, and access cloud gaming that way. 99.9% of people I don't feel like they're going to do that. They're going to download that app that with the white icon that plainly says Xbox Cloud Gaming. If it doesn't get them there, they're not going to do that. So I think the messaging of how to use some of these services maybe needs to be tweaked a little bit as well to get people interested. Because when I'm in public, I don't see a lot of people holding a phone when you're in a waiting room at a doctor's office, or you don't see a lot of people holding a phone playing a game. Maybe they would if they knew how to get to it a little better.
True, but I mean, with all that being said, I don't think that necessarily addresses their console ambitions, because we know that they want to move to cloud and that they want to get away from hardware. But I mean, unless they make a clean break, this is just a slow bleed. And the gaslighting, so to speak, I say that, I don't mean it as pejorative necessarily, from Phil Spencer about the vagueness about hardware. Again, we've mentioned that he says he's interested in it. They're exploring stuff. But are we confident? And I'm pretty confident Sony's working on the next console right now. I'm not so confident about Microsoft doing that. And, there's no reason to believe that they're not. But, this emphasis on games everywhere and the fact that they are putting more games everywhere seems more evident that they're putting more effort into putting, publishing games on different platforms. He's talked about how excited he is for the Switch 2. I could see more games going to the Switch 2 before I see the next console come out from Microsoft. And with that next console coming out, would that be the last one? Are they interested in handhelds? Is that where they're going to pivot after this? Or is the next console is it even going to match spec for spec with the PlayStation. I know everyone's fighting for GPUs and chips and stuff like that. Like, do they just say, all right, we'll make another subpar, secondary game because we have the software and the platforms to be everywhere else. We don't need to make the most bleeding edge one, and we'll just be settled with that. We'll be happy selling 30 million units over 10 years versus, Sony's 60 million over 7 years or whatever. I only say all that because, again, this is going to lead to my next point about their view as far as their stock, which again was why their stock was down about 6%. A lot of companies saw their mediocre / weak projections for next quarter as kind of a period to basically sell off. And I believe, I get a couple quotes from some people. We have Street Pro Steven Sarge, I believe, Guilfoyle, who was not pleased with Microsoft's numbers. He says, I have to say that as a longtime shareholder of Microsoft and a longtime public bull in both the firm and the CEO, I'm disappointed. Sure, the quarter was still strong and the balance sheet is still stellar. There's no need to panic and no need for a fire sale. That said, Azure is growing, but not like a weed. And the free cash flow numbers are certainly wonky. Another analyst, I believe, based his targeting expectations off of DeepSeek, which is the new competitor, which we'll get into in the next topic for a while, about how it's kind of going to be eating everyone in the AI's industry's lunch for a little bit until they can figure out a way to pivot and make money off of it. I believe some of the targets have now priced Microsoft from 525 to 510. Another one targeted them from, I believe, what's the other number for that? I think they were at 13% decrease from their previous target of, I believe, 510 to 500. So again, Microsoft came out and said, hey, we're going to be not struggling, but we're going to have a more competitive quarter next quarter, and the earnings won't be nearly as high. And I think some of these people who are longtime Microsoft investors are seeing this as a time to short them for a little bit. Who knows? They may we're coming out of a holiday quarter, so what typically is probably their best time, and they barely beat expectations. They're probably seeing something as meeting expectations, which in the world of investment is underperforming, unfortunately, because it's all speculative. With that being said, we're going to wrap up this doomer section with your final thoughts on everyone kind of short selling Microsoft right now. Maybe they're doing it on the back end to pick up more stocks towards the middle of the quarter. Who knows? But what are your thoughts about Microsoft being down?
It's ebb and flow. And I don't mean to give a short or sound like I'm giving a short answer. Uneducated response here, but I think, it's like we said off mic, well, we wanted you to make X, but you made $2 less than X, so therefore things are off. When you're an investor, you want things up all the time, and usually the worst you'll take is a break-even quarter. I mean, and that's the case whether it's software, cars, or housing, or whatever. Everybody wants to make money. Now, does Microsoft sit in this situation next quarter? You might see some things change, because I think you're going to see some things change anyway based on what we're getting ready to talk about. DeepSeek is going to take some money out of some pockets, and I think that's going to start showing up on these quarterly earnings reports. Now, Microsoft is first out of the gate here for 2025, and I get that it's basically 2024 numbers, but still, the next quarter is the one I want to see when the investors say, hey, you remember those payments we agreed to when we talked about this investment a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago? You remember that payment you wanted? Well, we're not going to give you that payment. We're going to give you this payment or no payment, and it's going to be much less. So where do these cloud numbers go? Where does innovation go? Because it takes money to innovate. How quickly does something change? We're getting ready to find out.
Definitely. We're going to take a quick pause on that because we are going to jump into the DeepSeek conversation. But In between that, we also have headlines about the support for, that's right, iPhone on Windows. Can we jump into that?
Yep. Yep. I kind of wanted to jump into this one because I'm an ecosystem guy. I'm going to be straight up with you. I like my stuff to be, if I'm in Windows and I want phone access, then I've got my Android phone. If I want Apple and I want phone access, I've got my Apple phone. And usually I'm going to buy the platform that fits my ecosystem. Well, Microsoft has decided to give me both, or give us both. You now have better phone link support for the iPhone. For example, you can now get your notifications. You've always been able to get your notifications on Samsung phones. You can now get your notifications. You can have file sharing back and forth, which is something I thought we would never see with an iPhone and a Windows PC. You can move files back and forth. You have it, if you're in the dev channel, you have the side pane that pops up that gives you your calls, your texts, your photos. You now have that on the iPhone. Now, why does Microsoft do this? Do they just want to go play with the iPhone or beg Apple to give them access to something to hook it in? No, I think everything kind of ties together here. It's kind of like what we spoke about off mic. I don't see Microsoft winning on Windows PC purchase because now you have iPhone access on your Windows PC. I think people are familiar with Windows PC. They like the iPhone. They have the iPhone, and now they want to bring the two together because there's a lot of people out there, myself included. You buy that one PC that does everything. So if you're a gamer, you go buy the gaming PC with a dedicated graphics card, and you still use that for your productivity. But you like the iPhone, you don't like the Android ecosystem. Well, now you've got a way to hook that together. If anything, Apple may win a little bit on this because people may say, well, I want to be able to hook that to my PC. Now I can. So instead of buying that Android phone, I'll go back and buy that Apple phone. That is a very real possibility.
I mean, technically speaking, Microsoft doesn't lose on that anyway. It's a stalemate because they don't make a phone operating system, so they weren't going to win those customers. To your point of a PC purchase, they do win on that aspect because again, the next time someone goes or is up for a new PC purchase, they are now not considering Apple based on the fact that files are easier to share or the operating system is easier to navigate on the operating system. They might be completely oblivious to how well integrated an iPhone is with a Mac because they've just been using just their phone separately from their PC to do entirely different workflows. They don't do what they do on their phone that they do on here. But with Phone Link, maybe the person who's looked over their shoulder, looked over, or talked with a family member, spouse, something like that, sees the integration, wants the integration, can get very close to that integration on their current device. So why now would I switch to an entirely different operating system? We kind of conflate the hardware, the brand, and the operating systems together as reasons why people kind of shift stuff. It is very difficult to learn a new operating system, especially depending on how long you've been living in the world of another one. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible.
I've done it.
Yeah, we've seen people do it before. There's YouTube is littered with everyone. I switch from Windows to this. They're growing pains. But for a lot of people, they don't want the annoyance. They want the convenience of stuff they already know. If they've navigated Windows for the last 15 to 30 years and they've had an iPhone for the last 10 years, why change it? I get the new iPhone sent to me by my carrier. My work provides me with a laptop that's Windows-based, or I already have one that's Windows-based that works just fine. Now all of a sudden my iPhone works with this thing. I'm going to keep going with this versus I'm kind of getting to the end of my rope here. I'm thinking about maybe purchasing or exploring a whole new operating system because the things that are currently working for me aren't necessarily working as well. Now I might start looking for it. This is why Microsoft is investing in this. Again, for Windows market share that is steadily decreasing, I think this is kind of a way to stave off and keep Apple at their 13, 14%, and keep whatever people are sticking with Windows to that. Again, a lot of people are just moving to tablets and phone operating systems in general. Like the idea of having that home computer has gone out the window now, and everyone just has their own personal phone, and they may never even touch a computer for some people. They may just do all their computing on their phone via apps or whatever. They might buy a foldable and be like, you know what, I don't need a PC really. All the things I do, all my flight apps, all my banking, all my Uber foods, and getting a car, all this stuff I can do on my phone. What do I need a computer for? So I think I see it as a good sign. It's a good thing that they're doing.
I'll throw something in the comments, something I've noticed about PhoneLink that maybe other people haven't had. We are lucky enough to get review units, and we have multiple PCs. Now, something PhoneLink will do is allow you to attach multiple PCs to your phone. So when you pick up a new PC, you click refresh, it attaches to that one, syncs everything together. Go to the next PC, click refresh, it syncs up. So my question is to somebody that's tested this, leave it in the comments. Can you, on PhoneLink, have an iPhone connected, then pick up a Samsung device and do the same? Or can you have an Apple PC with that connection and have a PhoneLink connection at the same time? Or does Apple make you choose either or? What is the steps for the go-between? Because that's going to impact a lot of people too.
Yeah. For those of you privileged enough, let us know. We're going to move on to our next topic, which is kind of the meat of the potatoes of this pod. We're going to be talking about how DeepSeek cuts cost, and how Apple kind of figured it out. We want to give you guys kind of a little bit of background on the big fish in the pond this week, which is DeepSeek. It is. Let me make sure I get it right. It was founded in 2023. It started off as Hi-Fi, I believe. It was co-founded in 2016 by Liang Wenfang, I believe, Wenfang, an AI enthusiast and hedge fund manager. Focus was initially on developing and using AI trading algorithms to identify patterns of stock prices, as i.e. a hedge fund guy would want to. It got growth in 2021, and it was exclusively used in AI trading in managed assets, surpassing about 100 billion yuan, but it's 11 billion in US dollars. They had a strategic shift in March of 2023 when Hi-Fi announced it was concentrating its resources on creating a new and independent research group dedicated to exploring artificial intelligence, which the AIG that we're always contemplating, which led to the establishment of DeepSeek. So start off as a hedge fund kind of thing, like, hey, how do I make the best investments going forward? But I don't know, 5-6 years into that, they said, hey, we already have some of these algorithms kind of searching everywhere. Let's get some developers from across the world. They got some people from Europe and things like that to kind of come and work on this thing. And like I said, in 2023, they established, all right, we're going to just do AI separate from hedge fund stuff. The location is based in Guangzhou, Xishan, China.
I'm not going to try that one, buddy. I'm not going to do it.
I probably shouldn't have, but I did it anyway. Again, this one's focus is specialized in developing open source large language models, which is kind of their big thing, because I'm sure that's how they got the researchers to buy in. Like, hey, we will make it open source, so all your work can be seen instead of being hidden behind a paywall. Some of the achievements was the mostly recently released DeepSeek RS1, I believe it is what it's called. R1, sorry, DeepSeek R1 model, which provides response comparable to other contemporary LLMs at a significantly lower cost. I think they said it cost about anywhere from $6 million to $10 million to make, which again, not very cheap for the average person like you or I. But in the world of AI, that's relatively cheap when we're talking billions for some companies. Liang himself, he was born in 1985 in China. His education, basically, he was pursuing electronics information engineering at Shangxing University, where he developed a keen interest in AI. His career, again, like we said, he founded Hi-Flyer, which is for the investment fund agency. But now he's, this 30-something-year-old guy who is now co-founding and ahead of one of the most disruptive AI technologies. And we say that because, again, what they're doing at the cost that they're doing it is what the big thing is. If you want to jump in, I'll give you a second before I kind of break down how they're doing this. What are your thoughts on DeepSeek and kind of coming out of this weekend with everyone with their hair on fire about a $10 million project?
It certainly put some hair on fire. I don't think anybody was expecting such. It happened. What, Monday? Was it first thing Monday morning that we got this?
Yeah, I think there were rumors late Sunday night, but yeah, Monday was kind of where everyone kind of put their headlines on.
I think I saw the first headline Sunday night after the football game, and I was kind of, in that football mode, and I kind of just passed it over and went, okay, what is this? And didn't think anything of it. I just figured it was something somebody came up in a back bedroom, and it very well may be. But Monday morning, it kind of shook the world up a little bit when it came out. And I read the headline. We started writing, and the next thing I know, even my local news had picked this up. And I'm like, okay, I've got to go get this app. I've got to go check this out and kind of see what is going on here. Because then you started hearing about the servers were having some trouble, which ChatGPT had those troubles in the beginning too. And I think Copilot had a few troubles in the beginning. All right, so when I started seeing that headline, I knew, okay, somebody thinks this is popular, because my local news, my local, not even tech-related news, just told me that this is number one in the App Store today. That was bypassing ChatGPT. And the responses were good. Now, I'll kind of let you continue from here. But then I started looking in how and what it is. Apple started publishing some reports. People started scratching heads. Problems getting GPUs. How did China get them? What did China do? And I'll let you kind of pick it up from there. We'll keep going.
Yeah, we have a lot of unanswered questions about this, so please don't take our reporting as fandom of any sort. The $6 to $10 million is what we know is kind of publicly disclosed. Who knows how many millions or billions China put into this from the government itself, and they're just not explaining or saying. They could be backed by a $2-3 billion project that was just funded by China and its government, and they're only disclosing the investments from outside sources that had to be. So, and it makes it seem much lower. So, with that being said, it's also one of the headlines that came out, I believe, Tuesday was, immediately Microsoft embraced it. Ironically, they were like, hey, more competition, the better. And we'll talk about what they kind of did to also support it, ironically. Opening the investigation. They're saying that the model was trained on their model, which we all kind of laugh because their model was trained on everything else. So, again.
Without permission?
Yeah, is it like double jeopardy, or is this like a Robin Hood situation? Like the guy who robbed from the poor is now and made himself a king, being robbed again. Do you now go after DeepSeek for that, and democratizing it at that? Because maybe this is how they get away with that. This whole process. Like, you can investigate him and they find him guilty. Like, you did steal from him. It's like, yeah, but we're not charging anybody for it, so you can't come after us for any money. There's that aspect. To your point, that I think the U.S. government's also looking into, because we had a ban, which is kind of what forced the company in general to run on a kind of skeleton crew development mentalities, because they were also barred from getting GPUs and CPUs from the NVIDIA and things like that. So now the U.S. is investigating whether or not they found a way around that, or if they just violated it and used them anyway. Got a hold of GPUs and chips that they weren't supposed to. But because the U.S. kind of put an embargo, tariff essentially on these GPUs from NVIDIA. These are some of the techniques that they're using in order to get their costs down by like 1/15 of the cost. Apple disclosed these. DeepSeek is using something called sparsity technique, highlight, tailors, and swiftlies, multi-head latent attention, and pruning. So I'm gonna kind of see if I can, I read it. I am not an AI expert. I'm kind of going to try and dumb this down as best as I can without, muddying or conflating anything. Pruning, which again, if you can imagine, is kind of like a tree with a lot of branches. And what this system does is that it removes the less important connections in the neural network to make it more efficient. So while, you might ask Copilot or ChatGPT to find something, it goes out and kind of spreads like a spider web to grab all of the relevant information and brings it back. And it then processes that information. Instead of bringing it back, what this system does is it cuts it off before bringing it back. So it goes out, finds the relevant information, says there are 15 potential ones, and then does its processes outside of the language model itself to only bring back 3. And the other thing that this thing does, I think, is really cool. The AI itself is it will give you its reasoning for why it did that, which is a turncoat kind of situation where you see why it did it, and then you can give it feedback as to whether or not that was the right process, and then it can then reevaluate what it does at the next time for somebody else or similar search. Another thing that you're using are sparse matrices and tensors. Think of big spreadsheets where most of the cells are empty. Instead of wasting time looking at every cell, you only focus on the ones with data in them. So when they gather back relevant information versus stuff that might be superfluous in there, this saves time and energy. In AI, sparse matrices and tensors work the same way by skipping over the empty parts. They use highlight, tailors, and swiftleys. These are special techniques to handle the sparse data more efficiently. Highlight focuses on the important data, tailors manages memory better, and swiftleys optimizes processing when the data doesn't fit in memory. Together, they make the AI work faster and use less energy. Again, we're going to keep hearing that. Dynamic sparsity, that's the biggest thing that they're doing. This is like adjusting the brightness of a light based on the time of day. The AI can change how much it simplifies itself depending on the task, making it more flexible and efficient. They use low-rank approximation. Imagine summarizing a long book into a few key points. This technique simplifies larger amounts of data into smaller ones beforehand, and they will expand after that, which is part of this new thing that I believe Microsoft added, which is Think Deep, which means they will give you something initially, and then you could expand on that right afterwards, versus giving you, what they used to do, which is flood you with information, and you kind of pick and choose what you wanted. Quantization. This is like using a few colors in painting to make things simpler. In AI, it means using less precise numbers, which reduces the amount of computation needed, depending on what you're searching for. If you're searching for research or mathematics or something like that, that obviously doesn't apply. But again, by using these techniques, DeepSeek can perform more complex tasks with less computational power, which means that you need the GPUs or the server powers in order to kind of get similar results. Not saying they're exact as ChatGPT, but they're, for all intents and purposes, everyone's saying they're relatively on par with them. And this is, the ChatGPT's 4th generation of its language model. So to come out of the bat, already 4 generations up with, less power, less energy, less resources used, and less money spent. This is why I think Monday was just a big shock to everybody. Go ahead and jump in.
And I think Microsoft really had no choice but to embrace it. I'm gonna go out on that limb, and we're gonna kind of work our way here. I don't think Microsoft wanted to get out and say, "Yep, we're going to compete with this." I don't think that's the statement they wanted to make, because I think when it came, because the way this was presented it was presented like, "Hey, here's a model for cheap." And I'm making that in layman's terms, but here's a model for cheap. What leg does Microsoft have to stand on? Well, here's what we've done for 10 billion, 15 billion, 20 billion. We did it for 6 million. Whether, like you said, whether it was 6 million or 3 billion, funded by the government, they're not giving us that number. That doesn't matter to the investor. They see 6 million. Why did we give you whatever a number of billions we gave you? And then Microsoft has, kind of left to say, "Oh yeah, we're going to embrace this. This is good. Competition is good. This is good for the consumer. Oh, and here it is on our Azure platform, for anybody that wants to go play with it." Because we like this model. We're being friendly with this model. We're putting it on our platform. And I even saw a post Wednesday night where if you have a little tech knowledge, you can run this model or something similar. It's DeepSeek R1, I think, or something. You can run it on a Copilot PC. I saw the steps to do that, to use the NPU. And the thing is, it was published by Microsoft. It was in the Windows blog section. So I'm kind of like, here's Microsoft making a pivot a little bit. Oh, look what this other model can do, but they're using our Copilot PCs to do it. These Copilot PCs, look what you can do. And I think that's to deflect million versus billion a little bit, because kind of like your post said, they're telling the investors nothing to see over there. Look over here with what we're doing. We're embracing this Copilot PC you helped us pay for. Look, we're using it. So everybody's kind of had their hair on fire this week about money. What does this model really do? Is this model really accurate? I know there was a country that has already, I don't remember which one it was, that has already suspended it for privacy reasons. GDPR, I get it, but that'll be fixed. So what happens from here? I say Apple knows how these models are made. They published it. How quickly do we pivot? How quickly does Copilot pivot, which is another story we're getting ready to speak about, but how quickly does Gemini pick this up? Meta already put out a post. Supposedly there's 3 offices or 4 offices on the Meta complex. They call them the AI war rooms. These came out Monday after DeepSeek. Like, hey, we're jumping on this to see how they did it, what they did it, and what we can do. So the AI world is watching. I'll say that. The wallets, they're holding them in their hand, waiting to close their hand and close the wallet. They're just making sure it's okay to do so.
Yeah, you and I were laughing a little bit earlier at the schadenfreude of this whole AI bubble. As much as we use it and talk about it, make news for us, and ostensibly it helps us in our workflow, we have always come back, and you guys can attest to this, that we kept trying to find a reason, though. I mean, you and I have found various reasons, but nothing compelling to sell it. No reason to be like, hey, this is why you want to pay a certain amount month over month. And with DeepSeek kind of coming out, this is going to hamstring a lot of those efforts. And maybe, there was a runway Microsoft saw, and Google, and we say Microsoft because we're focused on them, but Google and Apple and everybody who was going on this, runway for AI. They were like, we have this much time before it's completely cut off, before people were saying, you know what, screw the investment. You guys have run $80 billion into the ground and resulted in nothing for it. Now we're done. And that could have been another year, 2, 3, 4 from now, while they trickled out, things here and there before they found the next big thing that AI could do. DeepSeek has now shortened that. It has gone from a runway to a cul-de-sac to maybe a driveway. And again, it's not saying that, AI is going to fall apart, or, the tech world's not going to recover from this, or that Microsoft isn't going to pivot and absorb this somehow and figure out a way to charge for it. Same thing with OpenAI, or maybe they get nationalist and the same way that, maybe people in the UK and Europe ban it, and it never gets access to, larger markets like the US, stuff like that. So people are forced to use more proprietary services because of security or whatever. Those are definitely ways to kind of stem the bleeding that happened this week. But, you and I talked off Mike about this becoming the Chromium, essentially, for AI development. Everyone's going to, get their version of DeepSeek because it's free. It's open source right now, depending on what's, fully in there and what it's trained on and what legally can and cannot be used for some of these parts, depending on what organization you're in or what kind of government actions you're trying to use for this thing. But it's going to become the baseline, and then people are going to go from there. So we're probably going to hear less about DeepSeek probably within the next 8 months or so, but it will be referenced by developers. It'll be referenced by your GitHub managers and things like that say, hey, this is based on OpenAI's version or the DeepSeek version. And we've built stuff on top of that. And I think it's Microsoft's pivoting to. That's kind of why they added what used to be a charge version of this, which is, I think it's called Think Deeper. This was on Copilot, but it was for people who were paying, I think, the $9 a month for it, or the $30, whatever it was that they were charging a month. That was a pro feature. It's not free, because guess what? DeepSeek has that built into it, and it's open source. So they're going to be forced to kind of pick and choose what they charge. Same thing for Google as well, because developers and researchers are going to start adding a ton of stuff to this stuff, to DeepSeek. Features that used to be behind a proprietary paywall will now be free for us to use. And Google and Microsoft and Salesforce and IBM, the rest of them, are going to have to figure out: do we want to keep charging for it when people have access to it, or is it more convenient to give it to them and keep the brand and keep them under our ecosystem and keep them in our stack? So we'll keep an eye on this. It's definitely not going away anytime soon. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
I want to say one more thing that's important that we forgot, and I'm going to say it like this: $600 billion.
In reference to what is that?
NVIDIA stock.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that is other big news.
That's the other thing, because what is powering the current models? The NVIDIA GPUs. Well, folks, $600 billion came out of NVIDIA's stock this week on Monday, just as soon as DeepSeek was introduced, not only because it's being more efficient, because supposedly China doesn't have access to the high-end GPUs that we're using. So even if NVIDIA was used, they're being used on a fraction of what we are now. And investors kind of did the old panic mode. Yeah, I mean, it was a bad day.
They scalped that stock pretty badly. And now, to NVIDIA's credit, they have spun it into a positive by saying, those of you who were worried because of this outcome, just think that because they've become more efficient with the GPUs, we're going to sell more because it's just going to be more out there. That's the way they've spun it, versus saying like, okay, they didn't need it, so we shouldn't be charging this much, and the scarcity is going to go down. No, they're saying that because smaller businesses can utilize this, there are going to be more of them, versus saying like Microsoft bought up, a third of our stock, Google bought up the other third, and now everyone has to fight for that middle third. Now they're saying Google won't need as much, Microsoft won't need as much, which means there'll be more for all of you to now start purchasing and doing that. So stick with us, stock, investors. Like, hey, we're just going to be selling more. That's all. We're not going to run into any, issues of supply and demand. That is pretty good spin for something that came out, and you wake up Monday morning going, you're not useful anymore, and they're saying, oh, but we are, just in a different way. With that being said, we're going to move on to our last topic, which is Microsoft announced Surface devices. We love hardware here, and they gave us a little bit more. We talked about how their hardware was kind of questionable as far as sales, but dagnabbit, they're still putting stuff out there. And this time around, we got the Surface. Let me make sure I get these names correct, because I think these are always for business, but it's the Surface Laptop 7th edition for business, and the Surface Pro 11th edition for business. And we got a snazzy new Surface Laptop 5G, which is different than Surface Laptop 7th edition. So, and all of these will be powered by an Intel Core processor, Series 2, which is, I believe, some of that Lunar Lake technology we got going on. Part of the announcement is that we are going to be getting about 22 hours of battery life from these. They'll be coming with Wi-Fi 7. They're, the same ports that we got from the other ones. We'll be getting about 26% faster performance based on this Lunar Lake chip inside, and about 3 times the battery life during Teams calls. They said specifically Teams calls. So don't think that extends to everything, but they've at least optimized Teams to work with this. These are sustainable. They, I believe, use over 65% recycled content, including 100% recycled rare earth metals and magnets. The Surface Pro will be able to utilize the same sort of NPU heavy focused services and software as the Copilot versions. It will also come with an OLED screen that will, I believe, also have reduced glare technology built into that. Obviously comes with the pen, the same sort of mics and webcams from the Surface Pro that was released with Snapdragon. They also released a Surface USB 4 dock, which will have support for dual 4K monitor. And then obviously the kind of connectivity of which I believe is HDMI, which is 2.1. I don't think it's the 2.2 version yet. And then they also talked about the Surface Hub 3, which will include a new app for Microsoft Teams Room. Edge is now available, so you can kind of actually navigate the internet from whatever meeting you're hosting, and a kiosk mode and Meerkat support for wireless projection. Then there was Security Copilot, which is the service management portal for admins, which features a bunch of security led AI services and tools. So those are the kind of things that came out from this device. Just give you a bit of a background on the processor real quick before I let you jump in. We got it's Lunar Lake architecture, and the performance process is, like I said, about 25% faster multitasking. The battery life is a little bit longer. And again, these things will be able to do all of the same sort of stuff that the Copilot Snapdragon ones will. So all that, cool Windows Studios and all the, recall, which was something I don't believe that the previous Intel versions could do. All of the generative graphic stuff for paint and photos and stuff, that's all going to be there. The Intel Core Ultra processors also use an Intel Arc graphics thing, and I believe that GPU has about 99 tops for that to kind of share. So, while they're not NVIDIA or AMD graphics, they are vastly improved over the what was the first one called? Like what was
Iris XE.
Thank you. There we go. So these are supposed to be better than that. Again, good for light to moderate gaming, not heavy gaming, obviously, but should be able to process if you're doing any kind of graphical editing or anything like that, be able to process it a little bit faster. What are your thoughts on these, mirror devices, so to speak? They're not necessarily new, but
business needs the Intel AMD architecture. I get it. They have, folks in some businesses have a lot of apps that require Intel that won't run on the, let's call them the consumer Snapdragon devices. I question battery life a little bit. Battery life with Microsoft is always a little bit inflated. I don't know that we're going to get 22 hours out of that Intel chip because I don't quite get 22 hours out of my lovely Snapdragon.
That's because you're not on Teams for 22 hours straight. That's your fault.
That's my fault. I'm not meeting and talking for 22 hours, but this is par for the course for Microsoft. We've got the new Intel chips. They're in the for business moniker. So we kind of see what Microsoft is doing here. We didn't see an Intel device slip back into the consumer side of the Surface devices. We didn't see a Intel device or an Intel device with a hitch back in the consumer devices. So what's Microsoft telling us? They're telling us ARM, consumer, Intel, business, if you need it. We have it.
Yeah, I was thinking that at first, but I think they're about to blur the lines with that. I think we might get an Intel one the next time they do their consumer version later this year, probably. Usually, May, June, they announce these things. Only because the Intel Lunar Lake, again, which was an accidental chipset that was released, sort of under bake, according to Intel, had performed so well as far as battery life is concerned and NPU support. They didn't have that chip when or at least it wasn't ready when Snapdragon was first announced. I think if they can offer similar battery life, and again, I've tested a Lunar Lake device and a Qualcomm one. Qualcomm still edges it out by about an hour, but again, we're talking real world use, going from a previously 8-hour device to a 12 to 15-hour device in the Qualcomm from an 8-hour device to a 12 to 13-hour device with the Lunar Lake. That's still improvement that people will feel and utilize, but they won't have that one instance of, hey, your app isn't compatible. They won't get that ever with the Intel Lunar Lake version. And that's why you still make it a consumer one. Now, it'd be cleaner for us to report on, or for Microsoft probably to manufacture. Here's your consumer, Qualcomm. Don't ask us about anything else. And here's your business, Intel. Don't ask, or AMD. Don't ask about anything else. But we have prosumers. We have people who do various things across the board, and they don't really market their commercial channels via the store. You have to kind of search that out. But what they can do is when they go to configuration, say, hey, here's your Qualcomm. And guess what? You'll get very similar battery life, if not better performance with the Intel one. And it's there for the taking as well. If you want to, maybe they differentiate now by cost, saying, hey, the Qualcomm ones are about $100 cheaper. The Intel ones are $150 more because you don't have to worry about any of your software or any of the things that we run as far as our IT guys having any issues. So I still think they're going to come out with an Intel consumer one, but they tend to do these plus/4 business models earlier in the year.
And something we've not heard a lot about since really, at least me, maybe you've heard something I haven't, maybe since November, is Snapdragon apps. Apps that are now ARM compatible. That's kind of slowed down a little bit, and that's kind of worrying me because we review things. I'm lucky enough to have access to a couple Snapdragon devices right now, and I have not. You have done the Lunar Lake reviews for us. I haven't done one yet, so I can't speak on how Lunar Lake impacts my workflow. But I can tell you these Snapdragon devices are wonderful for what I do. And I can't see myself putting one down unless a Lunar Lake device is better. So I don't hear Adobe saying, hey, we're still working on it. The last we got from them is we're running in the translation model. Be happy with that. And that's been concerning to me that we're not hearing things.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The support cheerleading section has gone very quiet for the Snapdragon. And again, maybe they're holding off for the next announcement later this spring or whatever to say, hey, when you announce the chips, we will have our software development complete by that point. Maybe Adobe is still working on it, but instead of saying, hey, we're still working on it, they're just saying, hey, when it's ready, when it's fully baked, we will come out with the announcement, and that'll be the big surprise. We don't like to be left in the dark, but and we like more transparency. But hey, I get it. It's marketing. It's gimmicky. So maybe we just wait till the spring. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. I currently use a Surface Pro with Snapdragon, and I have admittedly changed my workflow from Adobe to DaVinci. I haven't run into any other software issues with this device at all. Battery life is still stellar. It outlasts the Lunar Lake one by, like I said, about an hour and a half or so. So maybe the idea is that if we don't talk about it, people won't question it. This won't be a negative headline anymore saying, hey, well, you support, all these are supporting, but all of these aren't. If nobody's talking about it, then you just assume everything's supported. And that the translation layer has gotten better. They had an update to it that's brought in more apps that don't necessarily have to announce it they're being supported. They just work. Who knows if they're going to announce another layer update that will bring in more unannounced support saying, hey, the X company isn't saying they support us anymore. We just support them. And to the point where you don't even, know that it was never there to begin with. That's my final thoughts on that. We got to kind of wrap up with our gaming section. Before we do, I just want to give you guys some of the prices on this. If you don't want to visit the site, I believe the Surface laptop for business Series 2 will be available February 18th, starting at about $1,499. And that's for, I believe, your base model. You can obviously go up from there when you start adding OLED and different, variants of the Intel chip. We're also going to be having the Surface Pro for business with the same Series 2 chip starting at $1,499 as well. So I guess it just depends on the screen size that you want and the versatility. Then we've got the dock, which is also going to be available on the 18th, and that's starting at $199. And then I believe the Surface Hub 2, we don't have a price for it, but it's expected to be available Q3 of 2025. And then the security portal, for those of you guys who are interested in that, that'll be available for preview on the 24th of February. So everything is kind of February or later. So check that out. Last section, gaming. What are you playing, my friend? What are you doing these days as far as gaming? Does that have to be Xbox, just in general?
I played a few interesting things this week. I've kind of just to give you a 30-second review, I'm a very busy person, and I try to take a few minutes each day for myself just to wind down. Now, Ready or Not off of Steam is one that I have picked up. It's kind of a little bit of an independent developer. It is a shooter type game, but it is not the run and gun of Call of Duty. It's more of a tactical thinking man's game where, if you're talking to your teammates and the other team is close, they may hear your conversation. So it's more of a be quiet, jump around the corner. Whoa, I didn't see you there, and it'll kind of get your attention, once in a while. That has been a really good game. And kind of the reason I picked that up is it recently gained controller support, which has kind of been a hint that it may be coming to our Xbox console. So I kind of wanted to check that out. I had bought it over the Steam sale. It was really cheap during the Steam winter sale. I picked that up. I have picked up NBA 2K25 for a little while this week just to have something to blow off some steam. I actually streamed that on my Surface. Sitting in bed this week just to have a little time to myself. That pretty good game. It's not as bad as the reviews make it out to be. Let's see. I have done a little sim racing this week on iRacing, and for those that have asked, I race with a Moza wheel Moza racing base. That is a direct drive racing base with the KSW Moza wheel. Maybe I'll take some pictures, do a little video, and maybe get you guys a little review on that for the ones that are interested. So for me, that's been about it this week. The weekend just got here, so I will find something to play this weekend. What about you, my friend? Had any fun this week? You have kids.
I've been obsessed with a 2-year-old game, and I didn't realize it was 2 years. It came and went right past it. It's called Sifu, I believe. Sifu. It is an amazing game. The graphics, I think, are pretty interesting, but its combat is, second to none, top notch. The only other game I remember something like this is Sleeping Dogs, which is kind of an open world kung fu game. This one is more closed world, but lots of action and environmental use. The reason why I started playing is because I found it on Game Pass. And I started playing it for free. I started playing it on my Surface Pro with the controller attached. Then I mentioned, I think I've said on this pod several times that I got a Switch, and it was on the Switch. It was there for like $40, but just the other day they went down, and I think the price is now $16. So if you want to run out and grab this game, it is awesome. It's an amazing game. I suggest people try it out if you haven't. Again, I'm 2 years behind, so those of you laughing and mocking me, definitely is definitely deserved because I missed the boat on this. But it is again one of my obsessions. I believe the game has about 5 levels, if I'm not mistaken, but every level is very extended. The gameplay gets harder. The enemies, kind of wisen up to some of your techniques and styles. There are several areas where you're kind of fighting multiple people in a room, kind of like in a movie. You could set up scenes, so to speak, if you wanted to, and record yourself and kind of make your own fight movie, so to speak. Been playing that. The other game I've been playing is League of Legends Wild Rift on my smartphone because I recently was watching the show Arcane season 2, and that thing was amazing. So it got me back into exploring the world of League of Legends. And I've been playing Marvel Rivals. I've been waiting for some of the season 1 characters to come out. I believe it's going to be I think they're including the Fantastic Four, if not mistaken, and a handful of other people. I'm hoping some of the X-Men make it that way. But those are the games I'm playing. I've been playing Marvel Rivals on the Xbox and the Lenovo Legion Go when I can, handheld stuff. Handhelds are making their way back into my life a little easier because, as you mentioned, I do have kids. They usually hog the TV. So while they're watching whatever it is they're watching TV, Dad could still be in the same room, sort of watching them playing my game or out and about playing my game. So that's what I've been doing. We want you guys to let us know what you guys are playing so we can start talking about that as well. How you've been playing it is also just as important. You're playing it on your phone. You're playing, even if you're playing tabletop games, nothing electronic. Your good old card system game or dice game or something like that. Let us know. We're always interested in any type of entertainment that anybody can kind of seek in this day and age when everything seems to be bad news for people of our age group. Any way you can find happiness, we'd love to know about it, especially when it's gaming. With that being said, we want to thank you guys, get you out of here. Where can people find you if they want to let you know what they're doing?
Well, David PHA 1978. I did get a few messages this week on Blue Sky, so that's where you can find me. I'm still hanging out on X. I do read through the threads over there once in a while. David PHA 1978. Haven't really posted anything over there. Don't know if I really do a lot of posting over there yet. Now, if you see me do any posting over there, maybe it's somebody of note that has not come to Blue Sky yet that I want to interact with, but it will be very limited. So come over to Blue Sky. I think my buddy just lost his headset there. I know he hangs out on Blue Sky quite a bit, and I think he's getting everything.
Here we go. Am I back?
Yep, you are back.
Sorry,
my friend.
but I lost my mic. But I am also on Blue Sky at Happy Hulk at Blue Sky. I talk about a lot of politics, but comics there. There is a convergence of the two. There's a Kickstarter I wanted people to kind of get aware of. It's called, where is the title? I'm drawing a blank. But it is, I think it's called Kill Billionaires, if I'm not mistaken. It is a graphic novel that a guy is trying to promote. Looks really great. The artwork looks amazing. I've already backed the project, but I will try and drop it down in the show notes for the exact title, if I'm not mistaken. But if you get a chance to, go look for a Kickstarter called Kill All Billionaires, I believe. I think you'll like it. Other than that, you guys take care. Enjoy yourselves. Have a great weekend.
See you guys next week.
In the cloud we stand tall.